Our next speaker is Gordon Cannon. He's the head of Global IP Exchange at BT Global Services. He's been with us the whole of the conference. He's been following the debate we've been having about the analog to digital shift, the white paper and the panel discussion yesterday. So I'm really pleased to welcome him to the stage to share his thoughts.
Thank you, and good afternoon. My thanks to the TSA for allowing BT to come here today and speak to you all about our digital transformation. I'm not actually now in Global Services. I'm in BT Group Strategy, which is a failure of my update to my LinkedIn profile, which isn't very social media savvy and not very good, frankly. But the title on the screen is now correct. BT, if we talk about the steps forward for BT, I think it's important to acknowledge where we currently are. So what's the state of the digital nation in the UK? I'd say we're in a really good place. On the fixed network, I'll draw yourself to a couple of statistics on the screen there. Nearly 93% of our citizens can order superfast broadband service at 24 megabits and above. Further to Beverly's statement earlier about not baffling people with the technology, that's enough to run 4 high-definition video streams and browse the web and do your email and have a couple of voice calls. More importantly, 99% of people can get a broadband service over 2 megabits, which is a standard definition video with some web browsing and some email and a phone call. So it really is broadband on the fixed network almost everywhere as it stands today. On the mobile side, EE have provided us with 4G coverage that reaches 99% of the UK population. And work continues to expand that coverage from 85% of the UK's landmass to 95% of the UK's landmass by 2020. Openreach on the fixed network are passing 19,000 homes and businesses every single week to improve the speeds of broadband. So the next step, what does broadband everywhere mean? It means that we've got the infrastructure that we need in place to transform BT's analog phone service to digital. Instead of a phone service first, with broadband as a second service, which is how it happens today, it'll be a broadband and a digital phone service provided together. The digital phone service will move voice calling on, providing crystal clear voice communications so that it's like the person that you're talking with is in the same room. It'll provide easy-to-use nuisance call blocking so that people can stop the calls that they don't want to receive. We're starting now ahead of our 2025 completion ambition, as we recognise that consumers and businesses need time to make the change successfully. And our last point on this slide is really to demonstrate that this isn't just a UK phenomenon. The changes have been made by many carriers already around the world, and we have, in fact, Germany is almost complete in their transformation, and we've been consulting with Deutsche Telekom and speaking with them, trying to learn what went well and what didn't go well so that we can make this a successful transformation for the UK. We see this as an investment in digital infrastructure as providing the foundations complementary to support the complementary change in your industry. I've walked around the space over where people are demonstrating all of their new products and services, and I've been extremely happy to find that there are lots of innovation in apps and new digital products and services in the Telecare tech industry. Providing those digital connections into everyone's homes means that you can all invest with certainty in new innovative services and devices to help people live safely in their homes for longer. The idea that we can use unobtrusive sensors in people's homes to monitor their activity, though slightly spooky, sorry, I've lost myself. Unobtrusive sensors, we can monitor people's activity in the home and spot unusual variances in routine to help is absolutely amazing. The fact that it can be an unobtrusive service that monitors people and can proactively call out when somebody might have had a problem is just exactly where I would like it to be when I get a bit older. I'm sure for your industry, you'll also welcome and be excited to have devices that can be polled on a regular basis to determine their status, to make sure that they always have a network connection and all of those alarms and messages can always transfer over the network and be received by the alarm receiving centres for action. IoT is talked up and smart home equally so, but in this conference I see that quite a lot of those technologies have already arrived and you've made a start. So please keep innovating and building better, richer services. So what's changing? There's a great deal that's changing actually on the network, far too much to talk about in this plenary session. So I just wanted to highlight some of the key changes that you will see as a consumer and that things that you need to take care of in your industry. And the first thing is, in our move from analog to digital telephony, we're going to ask that people give up their extension wiring. Extension wiring does not work in people's homes, does not work very well with broadband, can provide in certain circumstances a lot of interference. And so we're asking people when they move over to digital voice to forego that and move to a purely wireless solution in the home. 60% of BT's customers today already use DECT, so we don't see this as a major transformation for those people in the home. The second thing I want to draw your attention to is that the phone service moves away from the master socket, as it is today, into the back of the router, as it is on this diagram, or a home hub, as you might know it. We're providing an analog terminal adapter, a dongle or a widget, that will allow people to continue to use the DECT phones and base stations that they have today with the new digital voice service. For those people that provide button and box type services in this industry, the impact there is that you will need to move from being plugged in at the wall to being plugged into the back of the router, notwithstanding testing that we need to talk about, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So you're all hanging out. When is it happening? You can't wait. 2017, where are we? Well, this is the first, as you can tell, engagement from BT out into an industry. We've got many others to do. We're calling it a special services engagement. Special services is everything that people will use the PSTN, the phone network for, that isn't simply a consumer picking up the phone at home and making a call, or a business similarly so. So things like your industry, Telecare industry, fire alarm industry, security alarms industry, lift lines, Ministry of Defence, Highways Agency, the list goes on. So we're starting to get that message out, and we're working with Ofcom, as you heard from Hugh Saunders yesterday, in trying to figure out what the communications plan needs to be for the citizens of the UK to make sure that everyone is aware, and there'll be more coming in the next 12 months. I've just handed back from the BT Property people our new test facility that's going to be at Adastral Park. Well, it is at Adastral Park in Ipswich, and we've created this whole new environment such that device manufacturers and service providers can come in and test backwards compatibility of analog devices with the new voice service, the digital voice service, but also, as importantly, forward test their new digital smart home or IoT, but all IP applications on our new digital network. OpenReach, they're currently, everyone loves an OpenReach. They're running their products, which is all of the underlying digital infrastructure is still provided by OpenReach, and they are running their trials with 10 retail communication providers at the moment, and they envisage finishing all of that and launching their products in the first half of 2018. It's worth highlighting on this slide as well that the system that BT is going to be using for their digital voice service is a combined service with the infrastructure that EE use to provide voice calls on the mobile network. And that's really important to note for future reference as we get through the transformation and out the other side, as it allows us to move forward into convergent services. Okay, 2018. As I said, first half, Openreach will finish their product development and launch the service, and that will allow retail communication providers to build those into their offers for their customers. BT will consumer, who some of you may have met, Dave and John, who've been around with me. They're going to be launching they're trialling their service in the first part of the year and then launching it in the second half of the year. And I think it's worth calling out what the migration strategy is for BT. And in the first instance, it's going to be opt-in, customer-led. So those customers that want to take a digital voice service, those customers that are recontracting for broadband or phone services or thinking about switching communication providers, and BT being one of those, they will be offered the digital voice service in the first instance. As we move through the programme in 2022-ish, we will get to a position where we need to start to hit planned migrations, so getting more of the volume of the business over onto our new digital IP network, because the plan of record and the ambition is that all of BT's consumers and businesses are using the digital telephone services by 2025. So what do you need to know? As Hugh alluded to yesterday on the sofa in the session in the afternoon, it's industry-wide. Many communication providers are undertaking this change, but they're all doing it at different rates, using different technologies, over different timescales that suit their needs. And we're looking with Ofcom to coordinate that message to make that a bit easier for everyone to consume in the coming months. Virgin Media's CEO got up at the beginning of the year and announced that he intended for all of the Virgin Media customers to be fully digital by 2020, by way of an example. This is key for your industry. The characteristics of the digital network are different to the analog network. We're providing the dongle, the widget, or the analog terminal adapter, however you want to call it, in the home hub to facilitate the change over the next 7 years. We recognise that not everybody is going to be in a position to swap out their analog equipment, and businesses will have replacement cycles and investment cycles and such like. People will need the time to figure out what the changes are and how they're going to bring them into their organisation and make them happen and make them real. So in order to help people do that, we're providing the analog terminal adapter dongle widget, and we're going to provide the test facility at Industrial Park, and we're going to invite everybody in who wants to come in and test all of their equipment against the new digital voice service to come in and do so to establish exactly what works and what doesn't work. The important thing to note, though, that this should really be seen by you, and I would have failed if you think that the takeaway from this is, don't worry, we'll take our equipment to Industrial Park, we'll test it and it passes, and therefore we can just move the connection from the phone socket to the hub, and we don't need to do anything else. That's not the case. That's there to help in the transformation. The end state has to be native IP applications. You have to remember that although we have an analog service, it's running on that digital network, and it has those different characteristics. And those different characteristics will drive risk into the services that you provide. And you need to be aware of that. The good news is we've already had some people informally testing, and we do anticipate that the vast majority of the modern equipment, certainly post-2007, will work with the widget analog terminal adapter. So we think we're in a reasonable place to help people transform their services over the time. And just reiterating that through the provision of the test facility in Industrial Park, we really are there to help make sure that those are safe and that you understand what works and what doesn't in a backwards compatibility test. But actually equally important, forward-looking, what's your product development, what's the all-IP solution, and how does that interact with the network, and is that safe? So the opportunity for the telecare industry, well, I think you've already heard it already this morning, and you've already got quite a lot of new innovative products and services out in the hall. But clearly the network being invested in by BT, providing ever faster broadband in whatever guise, whether that's G.fast or whether that's fibre to the premise, we're going to try and get to as many consumers and businesses as we can. The 4G coverage, EE will continue to expand that across the UK landmass, as I said, to 95% by 2020. And that provides you with the core infrastructure, I think, that you need to build those types of telecare and telehealth products that you've seen sometime this morning and certainly over the last day. It doesn't have to be one-dimensional analog voice anymore. That's the great news. The digital products and services are multidimensional, and they understand how the network works. When it's native IP and it can interoperate properly with the network, understand when messages have been received, when they've not been received, and so on, it makes it much safer, especially for the types of critical services that you guys run for the citizens of the UK. I really hope that you come and talk to us and use our test facilities at Adastral Park for those of you that are service providers and equipment manufacturers. You're very welcome. And we envisage that you'll be able to book in end of the first quarter of next year. All that remains is to say thank you for listening, and I hope to see you in the leadership workshop this afternoon or at some point in the future, maybe at a test facility somewhere on the east side of Ipswich. If you have any questions, thoughts or observations or you wish to make, then please reach out to me on my email, which is on screen. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.